February is almost here and I am finally out of that horrendous reading slump that I was in. And so I have a slightly ambitious TBR for February, or at least February hopefuls of books that I would love to read. Of course, we all know that February is Black History Month, and so I kind of try to base my TBR around those books. But at the same time, I noticed that a lot of the books that I've been leaning towards lately and wanting to read have already been around like Black history or have Black authors and just things like that. Of course, we should always be supporting Black authors just the same. So I will be sharing with you guys my February hopefuls. I'll also add in some honorable mentions, if you will, on some books that I have been looking at that didn't make my February TBR, because I can't make it 20 books obviously, but just some suggestions if you guys want to add any of these books to your TBR. First, I'm going to start with the books on my TBR. I tried to stick to only 4 books, trying to be realistic, a book a week. I feel like that's doable, so let's go ahead and hop right into it. This first book is so intriguing. It is Passing by Nella Larsen. This book is actually very, very tiny. I actually just recently picked this up. Also, before I get into all these books, let me say some of the books that I will recommend I have read, but many of them I have not read, so take it with a grain of salt, obviously. And if I don't fully explain the books well, I do apologize, but be sure to check into these books on your own and see if it fits with something that you would like to read. I'm going to do my best to explain them though, because obviously I haven't read most of them, so bear with me. This book I'm pretty sure is about, so if you ever heard someone use the phrase white passing, it's essentially where someone is Black, but their features or their physical appearance might come off as white. And so this book is kind of centered around that, and it's exploring how someone chooses to act when they may be white passing. So let me just read it off the book. A chance encounter reconnects Irene Redfield, a light-skinned Black woman, and her childhood friend Claire Kendry, who chooses to pass for white. Their troubling obsessive friendship soon leads both women to re-examine their life choices and their places in each other's lives. I also love that this is a classic. I have definitely been trying to get into more classics. It looks like there are 122 pages, so this should only take like 2-3 hours to read. This next book is Between the World and Me, and forgive me if I say the author's name wrong, but I believe it's Ta-Nehisi Coates. Okay, I had to come over here to correct myself. His name pronunciation is Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I went on a deep dive, and he wrote the Black Panther comics and Captain America and stuff. So I'm about to go on more of a deep dive, but y'all continue the video. This book is actually really intriguing as well. This one is, I believe, from the author's perspective. He's writing a letter to his then teenage son about his perception on being Black in America. I really found it intriguing when I read the back. It says, "This is your country, this is your world, this is your body, and you must find some way to live within the all of it." In a profound work that pivots from the biggest question about America's history and ideals to the most intimate concerns of a father for his son, Americans have built an empire on the idea of race and the falsehood that damages us all, but falls most heavily on the bodies of Black people. Bodies exploited through slavery and segregation, and today threatened, locked up, and murdered out of all proportion. What is it like to inhabit a Black body and find a way to live within it? And how can we all honestly reckon with this fraught history and free ourselves from its burden? So I feel like this is going to educate me a little bit. I feel like it's going to open my eyes to things that have happened in history, things that are still happening today. So I'm super excited to read this, because I say this all the time. I feel like this is like my motto for 2026, but it's one thing to be ignorant. It's another thing to be willfully ignorant and not want to further expand your knowledge on things. So I'm really excited to read this one. Quick location change. Let's continue. The next book that I would love to read this month is a little bit thicker of a book, but it is Americanah. Americanah is following a young girl who moves from her home country of Nigeria to America. She is doing well academically, but she is starting to kind of struggle and have to grapple with the fact that she is Black in America, and she never really had to think about being Black before, because back in Nigeria there was nothing to think about. Like, now that she's in America, she's kind of, I guess, struggling with identity and race, and I think this book has a bit of romance and love in it as well. It explores the central message of a shared Black consciousness as both characters, one in Britain and the other in America, experience a loss of identity when they try to navigate their lives abroad. Okay, so there are 2 people. One ends up moving to the US, the other ends up moving to London. Okay, so I didn't know that. It is a bit of a thicker book, like I said, so I'll probably have to space it out throughout the whole month. It is 588 pages. That's a bit intimidating, I'm not gonna lie. The next book I don't have the physical copy of, so I'll be doing it on Kindle, but it is Recitatif. This book is actually probably my most anticipated read because it just sounds so interesting. It is following 2 women who kept running into each other as adults, but they were actually friends when they were younger. Okay, let me rewind. So in the book, there are two people. One is black and one is white, but we don't know which is which. I think the author's main point of this book is to keep that ambiguous so that you as the reader have to, one, you can either just shut that out and not care about race and not look at it as something that's super important, or you are going to try to nitpick all the nuanced details and figure out which is black and which is white. And I feel like, I don't know, that part of it is very intriguing to me, but also the storyline behind it. Recitatif is a story in racial writing as the race of Twyla and Roberta are debatable. Though the characters are clearly separated by class, neither is affirmed as African American or white. Morrison, who is the author, has described the story as the removal of all racial codes from a narrative about two characters of different races for whom racial identity is crucial. Recitatif is told from the perspective of Twyla in the 1960s during a period of her childhood where her mother was not able to properly take care of her. She spent a portion at an orphanage where she met Roberta, a female of a different race. They became friends during their time at St. Bonnie's, although it was obvious to them that both of them were different. In the story, Morrison illustrates the theme of race and prejudice by using racial ambiguity through the interactions between two racially unidentified but characteristically similar girls to highlight the racial barrier and tensions prevalent at the time. I feel like Goodreads can always explain it better than me, so that's why I keep referring to it, because I don't want to give you guys the wrong information or explain it so poorly. Those are the 4 books that I would love to read in the month of February. Now I'm going to move on to some of my suggestions, some that didn't fully make the TBR, but I still might read them if I have time or if I just don't want to read those, because I am a mood reader at the end of the day and I can easily change up what I want to read. Like I said, those are just kind of my hopefuls. So I have some other books that are written by Black authors or about race or anything that'll just fit for Black History Month. Also by Toni Morrison. This book is called Beloved. This book is a bit more emotional, I feel like. So we are following a woman who was born into slavery. She manages to escape, but still 18 years later, she feels that she hasn't fully escaped what it has done to her. She ended up getting pregnant, but lost her baby, and she is basically haunted by the memory and the ghost of her baby. And of course, it is highlighting themes of motherhood, trauma, and freedom. This one has roughly 324 pages. This next one has been on my shelf for a while. I'm kind of scared of it. It is Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. And this is a gothic fiction book. I believe it has aspects of some kind of fantasy or magic realism. Okay, I looked it up. It is a mix of a gothic fiction, fantasy, and thriller / horror. So, like I said, I'm a bit scared of this book. It still intrigued me so much because cults is so fascinating to me. Like, I love documentaries, shows about cults, books about cults. It is so intriguing. So we are following a woman named Vern who is pregnant and in a cult, and she is escaping this strict religious cult. I believe she's like living in the forest, like fully on her own after escaping this cult. Vern, 7 months pregnant and desperate to escape the strict religious compound where she was raised, flees to the shelter of the woods. There she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. Even in the forest, Vern is a haunted woman. Forced to fight back against a community that refuses to let her go, she unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person should be capable of. To understand her metamorphosis and to protect her small family, Vern has to face the past and, more troubling, the future outside the woods. Finding the truth will mean uncovering not only the secrets of the compound she fled, but also the violent history of America that produced it. Okay, that sounds so good, but also I'm scared because I think it's like a bit of like, I don't know, is she a witch? I feel like that'll be a fun read. If you want something a bit more nonfiction, I have Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. I actually have started this book. I am apparently only on page 29. Okay, but I started it and I need to pick it back up. But this is I don't know if it's a memoir or what, but it is a true story, basically going over the life that the author went through, where she lost, I believe, 4 close people in her life in a very short amount of time. Okay, sorry, she actually lost 5 young men that were dear to her in the span of 4 years. Their deaths were seemingly unconnected, yet their lives have been connected by identity and place. And as Jesmyn dealt with the losses, she came to a staggering truth. These young men died because of who they were and the place they were from, because certain disadvantages breed a certain kind of bad luck, because they lived with a history of racism and economic struggle. The agonizing reality commanded Jesmyn to write, at last, their true stories and her own. Look, I haven't seen anyone talk about this book. I was literally just walking around Barnes looking for a different book, and then I stumbled across this and it caught my attention. So I'll let you guys know how that goes. While we're talking about nonfiction, I can't move on from talking about Black authors and nonfiction and Black History Month without mentioning these memoirs. First up is Finding Me by Viola Davis. This is probably my all-time favorite memoir that I've ever read / listened to. I think this was the first nonfiction book I read in my adulthood, and it was so good. I did the audiobook and the Kindle together, and when I say it is so good, because the audiobook is read in Viola Davis's voice, like she's reading it for you. And obviously she's such a great actress, and that really shines through in the audiobook as well. We're following her, basically her story of her starting out as a child, all the struggles and hardships that she went through up until the greatness that she became. And even though I can't relate fully to the stories that she's been through, I've never experienced the things that she has experienced to that extent, especially, but it's still, you still feel all her emotions. She's just a really good storyteller. She's a great actress all around, and I just can't let this go by without mentioning that book. Also, Becoming by Michelle Obama. If you haven't read this book or listened to this book, I highly suggest you do it. This is also following her upbringing up until she became the First Lady of the United States, as we all know. Then I have Legendborn. I have not read this book either. It is a fantasy book, which I feel like is one of the main reasons why I haven't read it, because I'm not huge into fantasy. It's also pretty thick. Again, I'm scared. But this one is a fantasy book written by a Black author with a Black protagonist, and I believe, okay, y'all might have to correct me because I don't fully know, but I believe this is following a girl as she goes into college. Her mother has passed away, and when she goes into college, this sorority type of thing that she is looking into is also, or she suspects that they are responsible for her mother's death. And it's like a magical sorority. Obviously it's a fantasy book, and so she's kind of trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this Legendborn society group thing, and she's discovering her own magic powers, and I guess we're just following along that. That's probably the worst ever explanation you're going to get of this book, so you're welcome. I'm so sorry about it. Okay, we're down to the last two. I want to touch on a bit of romance. I'm not the biggest fan of romance books, but I know many people are, so I wanted to make sure I included at least one romance book in here. But I actually do really love this book. I think I gave it a 4.5, if not a 5 star. This is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have only read 2 Kennedy Ryan books so far, and both of them have been amazing, so I feel like anything in her catalog would be a great read. We are following Yasmin. She is recently separated from her husband, and she's just had some traumatic things that has happened. She, you know, I'm not going to say exactly what happens because trigger warnings, but there's just been traumatic events that she has had to endure, and it kind of put a strain on her marriage and her mental health, and she separated with her husband. And the main premise of this book is like second chances and empowering women. And so I don't know, it was just a really beautiful book about her and her husband really just fighting for one another. Kennedy Ryan reminds me a lot of Kristen Hanna in the sense of, you can tell they really put all their emotions and feelings and everything they have into their books when they write, but they both are known to research and interview people who have been through situations that they're writing about so that they can have it as accurate as possible. So I really appreciate that as a reader. You won't go wrong with any book that you read by her. Also, Long Shot is the other book that I read, so if you want to read that, great. They're both series too. The last book that I'm going to tell you is one that I read recently, and I love it so much. The imagery, the lyricism, the writing style in this book is amazing. This is The Girls Who Grew Big by Layla Motley. Literally so good. We are following a group of teens who end up, well, at the point they're kind of all adults, I guess, or like young adults, late teens, who ended up pregnant, shunned from their families, or whatever the situation might be, and they're kind of finding girlhood and friendship in each other. They help each other out. It's just a really beautiful book about friendship, motherhood, love. My daughter will not let me be great, but self-worth. It's just it's just such a good book. Her writing is so good. This is my first book by this author, but I definitely have to go back and read other books by her. I believe she wrote Night Crawling as well, which I have to read. Just so good. This was my first time like actually going in and annotating and underlining books. I never wrote in my books before, but like I was like, I have to underline some of this stuff because it just hit differently. And the way she is able to explain different situations and really pull out emotion from the depths of your being was just so crazy. I feel like I always refer to the same part of this book whenever I am talking about this book, but it is a part where she is talking about orcas. This orca got washed up onto the shore, and the way she just kept bringing up the orca throughout the book and like describing, like just pulling different emotions from the orca washing up on shore, just relating it to the young girl's life. I was like, wow, like how do you even think of that? How do you even explain it that way? It was just truly so beautiful. I feel like I have to reread this book because it was truly, I just can't. And then also as a mother and someone who had my child fairly young, I had my first, I was pregnant at 20. It just hit differently. It was just a really beautiful book, so I highly recommend. So that's all I have for you guys. I do have a few other books that I have my eyes set on, but I'm going to keep this video short and wrap it up there. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys are able to take some of these books that I suggested and put them on your TBR. Let me know below if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, and which ones you're going to be adding to your TBR for February. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.